Hey, this is Dan Brzezowski. Welcome back to the No Comfort Zone. So I apologize. The last interview we were doing with Steve, we got cut off because we only had a 40-minute time limit because that's how I roll, free on Zoom. So, but anyway, we ran out of time. And what we're going to do is talk in this episode. We're going to finish up a part two with Steve and connect with him on what's been going on, the rest of his journey, basically. So this is Dan in the No Comfort Zone. I look forward to seeing you on the inside.
Welcome.
Attention, please.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome to the No Comfort Zone podcast. It's time to get out of your comfort zone and live on purpose. Broadcasting to the world from Rockford, Illinois. This is your wake-up call.
Warning.
You are the solutions to all your problems. Stop thinking average. Become the hero version of yourself. Every day, every time, without fail, no exceptions. It all matters. You've entered the No Comfort Zone. It's time for a reality check.
Hey, welcome back. We're back here with Steve. So this is part two of the interview that we were doing and kind of our journey, how we met, where you're at, what happened. And you were just talking about what I thought was really cool is how you came across because of your passion and living and working with watches and looking at that vintage and just knowing really what your market is and earning a living, a really good living doing that, you had other people seek you out and they asked you to do a live auction.
Yeah. So before I get into that, I just want to say, just to sum up something I was previously saying, like, I don't think I stressed enough, like, how important it really was, like, to make that initial jump. Like, it was super important, like, to have Hennessy sitting there telling me every single day and during the day while I was at work and at home during dinner, you've got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And then thinking back to the video you showed me and thinking back to all of the time you talked about, even before you were doing the podcast, you talked about no comfort zone. Your license plate literally said no comfort zone, right? So, I mean, like, I had two people who were really, really influential in this. And, like, honestly, nobody else could have pushed me to do this. So I just wanted to stress that. So that if you're thinking about calling Dan, or setting up an interview, like, or scheduling a time, do it. Like, and I'm not paid for this, and I did not pay him for that. And he 100% is the real deal. That's cool. But back to seeking me out. So there's this was really weird. So we were one of the, not the, but one of the top sellers on eBay in our particular category. We got invited to, like, summits and all kinds of weird stuff that we just didn't go to because, frankly, we needed to make money more than we needed to go to selling summits in whatever city they were having them. So they like to play games with money, and they'll do random holds and things that don't make a lot of sense. And I was just coming off of a period where right before Christmas, I got COVID and she got COVID, and
you guys had it really bad, if I remember right.
Bad.
Yeah.
Bad. We missed 31 days of actual work. So thank God we had put forth the time and the energy to have our online stores stocked, because all we had to do was go down to the shop and pull out our inventory and mail it, right? But that's the only thing that kept us there. And then eBay did, we do these random, whatever they are, audits, and they froze up like $12,000 of our money right after coming off of COVID, right before Christmas. And I'm like, this is insane. So we went through that, and then we had another bad experience with eBay where a customer broke by their own admission, by their own words, they broke a vintage Rolex and wanted me to eat it. And eBay sided with the customer. So it was really, really good timing on the behalf of this other company. as this other company is called Whatnot. It's a strange name, I think, but it's Whatnot. Like we sell everything and whatnot, you know?
Yeah.
So it's an app-based program, and this guy reaches out to me, and his name is Alan Stafford, and he's one of the vice presidents of this company, and they're relatively new. They're kind of a startup, and he said, "Hey, you know, I want to grow a watches sector." I'm like, "Okay." He actually shot me an Instagram message, and he's like, "Would you be open for a phone call?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll talk to you. That's fine." And so he calls, and we get to talking, and he's like, "Well, basically, here's the concept. It's like eBay, except for it's 100% live. So you are the auctioneer." So I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, okay, so I'm the auctioneer. So like, what do I do? I put like a watch in front of me and like I twiddle my thumbs and wait for people to hopefully bid on this thing. I'm like, is there a reserve? He's like, no, there is no reserve, but you can set your own prices. You have to. So I started like thinking like, when I go to auctions, how do auctioneers start backpedaling pricing, starting points and things like that? And then I'm like, you know what? I can't just imagine sitting there not doing anything during this. But you know what? We'll try one of your shows, Alan, and let's do it. So we agreed to it. We set up the show, and I'm not an actor. I have no experience like you do. I'm not a podcast guy. The only experience I have talking to people is the finance office and the sales floor, and that's it. That's it. So here we are. It's me and Hennessy's, and we're like, okay, well, let's figure this out. So long story short, we did, and it went pretty well. I mean, we didn't set like a record for income in one night, but we did a pretty good show, and get to thinking, you know, this isn't bad. Like if we could develop this could be a definite supplement to our business. The next day, I got a phone call from Alan who said, "Hey, I watched your show. You guys killed it. That's the best watch show we've ever had on our platform." And I'm like, "What?"
Right on.
It was completely not scripted. Like, we just literally just jumped and did it, and had no idea where we were going to land. And he's like, "No," he's like, he's like, "This is why I sought you out." He said, "I've been following your Instagram accounts. I've been watching you on Chrono24. I've been following you on eBay, and the quality of work you guys turn out is phenomenal. But not only that, the amount of history and the depth you guys go to actually explain to people what it is they're looking at, why it's important, why it's historically relevant, etc. And your customer feedback being, you know, superb. And just the comments you have aren't like, oh, A++, smooth transaction, thanks. It's like detailed responses from customers. And I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. Well, thanks for doing that. And he's like, well, here's the deal. So we want to pay you to do shows. I'm like, pay me to do shows? What's that mean? And he's like, well, we want to actually get you set up so that you're doing a weekly show and that we're paying you for your time. And I'm like, well, isn't that how I, like, when I sell a product, isn't that how I get paid? And he said, yeah, but just to entice you, because like, we reviewed it and we think that it was some of the best we've had. We think you'd be an asset to the show, both of you guys. So we want to pay you. And I'm like, wow, that's insane. And I'm not going to disclose how much money it is because it's not a crazy amount of money, but just the idea, the concept that somebody is willing to pay us money to go on a platform to talk about watches and sell watches is absurd to me. It's absurd. But at the end of the day, you know, after and it wasn't that show, it was one of our biggest shows we ever had, where we did, and I'll look back at this someday and I'll go, that was nothing. But
that's great.
At that point in time, it was like the second highest amount of money I'd ever made in a 24-hour period. And I'm like, that was pretty cool. That was amazing. Like, it was fun. We had great interaction with the crowd because people can talk to you. People, like, they can chat to you and you can talk, and like kept seeing like names, and like the audience is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm sitting there, and that's when I sent that text message to you. It's like the morning after that show. I'm like, oh my God. And what you don't know that I don't think you know, but you're going to find out, is that previously, right before that, after the whole COVID thing, like, you know, money, it takes a while to catch up, right? So after we were dealing with the lack of inventory, because I very much am involved, and so is she, like very much involved in the process of sourcing parts. I mean, they don't grow on bushes. I mean, these parts don't grow on bushes. You have to track them down, like from Poland and Ukraine, like crazy places. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, man, you know, things are getting a little tight. I'm getting a little scared, and I don't know what to do. And my phone rang. And it was a guy we both know, I believe, who is a recruiter for a warranty, the warranty group. Let's call it that. Mm-hmm. And he says there's an opening for a finance guy at an Aston Martin store, and we'd like to talk to you about that. And it pays X amount of money. And it was not, you know, on average based upon, you know how it is.
Yeah.
Looking at, but I'm looking at it and going, you know, that's a considerable amount of money, right? Like, I have friends that are doctors who don't make that money. So sure. That's good. So we talked about it. And then, like, it almost happened. And then Alan contacted me from Whatnot. And it was like a sign, like it was like a test from God, man.
It totally is, man. Totally.
And I'm not a religious person, like an overly religious person, but I looked at that, like that whole thing was a test. Mm-hmm. And it was unbelievable. And
totally,
again, I thought back to you guys, but to you too, honestly. And it was like, what would they do? And then I realized that I would be ashamed of myself if I gave up on it. And thank God we didn't.
You know, Steve, that's a good segue for where we're at in the conversation, is with where you're at in your story right now. I firmly believe, from the time that the term "no comfort zone" was implanted in my head in a sales meeting by my general manager 30 years ago, he said, you know, basically, hey, everyone here is getting so comfortable, I'm changing everyone's pay plan. That was my first sales meeting in an industry that I've stayed with for 30 years by accident. And that this was never supposed to be this way, but
right.
I do believe in the milestones, the right people, the right places, the right lessons. And unfortunately, when you take life for granted, it delivers you a huge dose of reality called adversity. And then once you make it past the adversity, I believe God challenges you and says, how bad do you really want it? Now, yep. You're given these opportunities along the way. I always say it, and this isn't a religious podcast, and the people that know this know me, that I keep it real. I swear every now and again, but in my opinion, God's delays aren't God's denials. And that time when you were totally humiliated by not getting the position, I mean, I've been there 6 times, as a matter of fact. Then you have to go home to your significant others and your kids and let them know that, hey, I know I've been building up to this, but it's not going to happen. It's humiliating. And there's nothing worse than being a man who's trying hard and being humiliated. It's scary. But when you persevere and you keep jumping, the right people show up in your life, the right opportunities show up, and it's those tests. And you've gotten past the adversity. And the whole reason I'm coming to this point right now is you're living the life that people should live. And what I mean by that is you're living on passion and you're living on purpose. And you're doing that because you know it's just the right thing to do. It's not even an option anymore. You just know that this is the direction you're going. I never even know how you came up with the name. That's the coolest thing that I've heard, that, you know, secondhand and the tie into it. Shit, I took a meme.
Just to play on words.
That's so cool. I took a meme and ran with it. And the guy that taught me how to do podcast and how to market it is, yeah, don't go with that. And I'm like, well, that's what I'm all about. So that's what I'm going to go with. You're going with your passion and your purpose. And something else cool that happened to you. You passed on the Aston Martin gig.
Yep.
You put all your money on the line a couple of different times. You've had ups, you have had downs. You've had, I don't know what the hell tomorrow's going to bring, but you know, you do have you and your partner, and I see you guys work together, right?
Oh,
You have
yeah.
that going for you. People wouldn't know that you've dealt with some adverse situations in other relationships, that you just get to a point where you're like, man, when's enough's enough? And then now you're in such a good spot. But what people don't know, what I think is super cool is, didn't you just get accepted as part of a organization that's going to train you a little bit further in your passion and your purpose?
I did, and I have to be a little bit careful about what I can say contractually.
I understand
About this, but I found out there aren't many watchmaking schools in the United States of America, let alone the world. But I found out that there was one in the United States. Well, there's two. One is it's like $35,000 a year. The other one is run by a little company called the Swatch Group. And if you don't know, for those of you who go Swatch, what is that? They single-handedly saved the entire Swiss watchmaking industry during the quartz crisis of the 60s and the 70s. When the Japanese invented quartz watches, the Swiss died. And Swatch was founded by a guy named Nicholas Hayek. And it was, Swatch is supposed to be second watch, like your beater watch, right? You're to mow the yard, not to go to a business meeting, right? And it was a quartz watch, and it was the first Swiss produced quartz watch. And with that, they became so successful that they actually saved brands like Longines, Hamilton, Omega, Breguet, Blancpain, and the list goes on and on. I believe there's like 23 high-end manufacturers that are underneath that umbrella. Well, it turns out they have a watchmaking school, right? Clearly, because there aren't many people who know how to do that anymore. And most of us who do, we are self-taught. So long story short, I found that there was a school in Miami, and that I had to have 2 letters of recommendation, and I had to fill out a lengthy explanation of why I wanted to be a student at that school. And I got invited to go to Miami, Florida and interview for that position, which in itself was like a huge honor. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. I mean, I'm going to interview for Omega. I mean, that's crazy. Like, what in the world is going on? So I went down there, and it was a little different than I thought it was going to be. I got hammered with this like 150 question, like pretty advanced math test. And then I got handed a watch movement that was broken, and they said, tell us what's wrong with this. And okay, fine, I'll tell you what's wrong with it. And I did. And then they said, okay, now we're going to have you rebuild one right now on the spot. Okay, well, there's like 6 other guys there interviewing for the same spot. And they pulled me out first to go interview. And we were all supposed to be out of the classroom at 5 o'clock. And at this point in time, when I got pulled out, it was like 1 in the afternoon. Okay. I didn't leave the interview room till 4:45.
Wow.
These other dudes were still sitting there, right? So I quickly pieced back the watch, and Hennessey's got to actually come up and see the room. And then I got this. I don't know if you can see it. There it is.
There it is.
I'm pretty proud of this. It says, congratulations on behalf of blah, 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 blah. which I think I'm not contractually allowed to say. You stood out as one of the most talented and promising students among a very competitive pool of applicants, and during the practical assessment, your performance convinced us that you will contribute to our diverse community and thrive in the fast-paced, hands-on learning environment.
How awesome is that, man?
So
That's
unbelievable.
kick-ass.
Unbelievable.
That's
And you helped me with that too. So
Right on. You know
helped me
what?
with that.
I remember when there was a certain watch that you posted on Facebook, because in case you audience listeners don't know, I'm a watch freak. About 3 years ago, I actually told everybody on the podcast that instead of investing money in an expensive watch, what I was going to do is actually put that money towards another investment and increase my net worth instead. And it's funny, I'm so obsessed with a certain watch that I had to get it. But you actually convinced me to get the watch. But the funny thing is how this works out is I saw the watch on Facebook. It's a nice vintage. I can't remember. Was it an Omega?
Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful watch. I still regret not getting it to this day, but it's, I tried it on at your place, and then you said, well, while you're here, let me just show you my work studio. And Steve, I got to tell you this, there's people that do things as a hobby. You know, guys tinker on cars. They work with audio equipment. They collect things. Like we know a guy that collects everything from Apple. You know who I'm talking about, right? Yeah.
Sure.
You know, they tinker in it, and, you know, nice display or whatever. And okay, there's your little bit of passion you have, but you were next level. When I went down to your studio, your workshop, and there was the watchmaking equipment, I don't even know what it was, but the truth in the matter was this was stuff that they used like in the 1900s, right? That, you know,
yeah, some of it is. And actually, so we talked about my grandpa being a watchmaker. It wasn't there when you were his watch cleaning machine was, but his watchmaker's bench is now down in the shop. So wow. I have 2 watchmakers benches now. I just bought 2 more. So those have to get brought over. But what you saw then has, I guarantee you, tripled in size.
Wow. You had a couple hundred watches. Am I mistaken, or no? You had about a couple hundred watches then?
Yeah, it's about 1,000 now.
Yeah. And then you had a photo kit, you had a cleaning kit. You were even training somebody when I was there.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things that was, when I left there, you know, you just knew the energy was right. And I'm a big energy guy. And the energy was right on. It's like you're in sync. And, you know, I was going to talk a little bit more about it, about milestones and meeting the right people and having these opportunities, the fork in the road. And if anybody looks at you and they say, you know, oh, Steve's the watch guy and that's the way it was. No, I remember when you and I were talking about I was trying to buy a fake watch, and we were going down that road, and I did buy it. And then I told you I was embarrassed to wear it because it's not, you know, it wasn't real. It was a fake watch, and because I didn't like what it represented.
Right.
So literally, I don't know if I told you this, but I you know, we're on this podcast. I talk about a lot of crazy shit, but one of those is that about the universe and what it provides for you, God, what it provides for you. And I've learned recently, the universe doesn't like a void. So I took all of the watches that I had, because I love watches, that weren't desirable, and I will be damned, 8 months later, the watch that I've always wanted, I called you and I said, Steve, I have a chance to buy it. And you're like, dude, you better buy it. And I was still on the fence. Absolutely. 3 days later, I remember I asked you, you know, this is a big investment. I don't know if I should do it or not. I got to convince my wife that this is a real investment. Did you know that watch actually went up a ton in value since I bought it?
I actually do know that.
Yeah, I'm blown away. I'm blown away.
And it's going to continue to.
Yeah. So there goes I got my net worth. I invested a little bit, paid for it, and now it went up in value. So I guess in the end, I did increase my net worth a little bit.
Did.
And I get to wear that watch every day, and I absolutely love it. And no, I'm not going to tell the audience what it is, but it's a really nice watch.
It is a very nice watch, and I congratulated you when you got it, because I heard about that watch for, I don't know, 5 years, I think. Mm-hmm. You talked about that thing off and on, and you finally had the opportunity to get it. It's not easy to get. You can't just walk in and get it, right? And that's something that people need to understand. You go to the store that sells it, you can't buy it. It's not there. So to actually get the phone call saying that, hey, your order is available, that's a big thing.
Yeah,
and,
it was. I was blown away, actually.
And you couldn't pass on that.
Yeah, totally. And, I think with what I'm trying to do with this podcast and the people that I'm trying to reach to is, you're a genuine person, first and foremost. That's so important. And what I'm going to promote, here's the promotion of what I'm doing for the podcast. Since I did my jump in 2017, when I quit and walked away from my job and found the one client I was looking for with your help, I know that I'm not where I want to be. And that's something I share with you. I'm not at the next level yet. There's so much more to Dan. There's so much more to where I want to go. And I feel like sometimes my day job gets in the way of that, but I do feel a great responsibility to follow through on getting to the place where I thought I could get to. So I'm going to continue to do that. But I found out a nice thing that I can do. So this podcast turned into people who have dealt with adversity, had found their purpose, and now are living in success. And you are like there's another guy by the name of Todd. Remember Todd Cunninger?
I don't think so. No.
Todd, we crossed paths too, but he's in that similar situation, living his best life right now. And what I've discovered is this, Steve, is that most guys that have these ambitions or goals are too afraid to jump. And
Terrifying.
you could say it firsthand how terrifying. Yeah, there you go. Terrifying it was. And what I found out is from meeting you and talking with you and being your friend and listening to what your trials and tribulations were, you'd be the first person to say it's ridiculous that you didn't do it sooner.
Actually, I bit my tongue on that, to be honest, out of respect for you. But the good thing is that you did, right? You did jump, and you know what? It's been awesome. But my personal belief, and you can edit this out if you want, my personal belief is you're not done jumping. No. I you know what? I agree with that. So does my wife, even my son. On a quick note, so did I tell you the story about the watch that I bought after I saw your watch? I went out and bought a inexpensive Highline luxury watch. It's expensive, but it's not, it's a $2,000 watch, which is a lot of money for a lot of people. And I thought, I feel guilty buying this watch, but it makes reasonable sense for me to buy it. So I bought it. And as I'm working out in my studio downstairs in the basement, which is where this all started, my son comes downstairs and he goes, "That's your new watch?" He goes, "That's not the one that's on the poster." And I go, "Well, there's certain things that I need to be reasonable with, and to spend, a ton more money on that other watch just wouldn't make sense right now." And he goes, he looks at me. He was 11 at the time. He looks at me and he goes, "I think you need to get out of your comfort zone and just get the watch." And I was like, "That's freaking awesome."
Wow. I go, "You know what? Yeah, but okay. Yeah. And I just kept thinking over and over again. And if it came in, I would do it. But what I wanted to go with this was there's guys like us that are out there that I want to do this someday. Somehow I'll get there. I don't know what to do. And the reason why the No Comfort Zone works so well for me is because I always have that pain in my pocket. I always have that, if I don't do this, it's all going to go away. If I take anything for granted anymore, it's all going to go away. I've had weight issues. I go up and down in weight like crazy. Sure. And I take it for granted. I get comfortable. I start eating more. I stop moving as much. And where I'm at today is this. I've turned it into, this is going to be my 5th No Comfort Zone time period. And what I'm doing is I'm sharing with people that, hey, if you're actually looking to get out of your comfort zone, find what your passion is. I'm walking people through a 60-day journey with me, because I'm going to go through another one again. Sure. And it's funny. Every time I do that, like when we did the Think and Grow Rich, which again, I said, we got to do it again. I want to do it again. We got to find the time
We
to do
need
it.
to do it again.
Yeah, we need to do it again because great things happen from that for both of us. But having the 60-day time period goes such a long way. So I want to say this. If you could, in your journey going through, let's say your no comfort zone and you knowing what your passion is, then committing to it and living on purpose, what are the big benefits that somebody who's on the other side of this that's listening can say, all right, I heard Steve and Dan talk. What can you tell that person that's struggling right now, that's on the fence? What do you tell them? What's the benefit of this? What's the peril if you don't?
The peril, I'll start with that. The peril of not doing that. The peril of not doing that is, there's a Pink Floyd song called Time. And one of the famous lines from that song is things you've planned have gone to naught, and before you know it, 10 years have got behind you. And it talks about the sun setting, right? So I know I butchered the lyrics, but the point of this is quite simple. We talk about making the jump or going through a no comfort zone, or however you want to phrase it, because ultimately I believe it means similar things, right? If you don't do that, you're always going to sit there and you're going to be unhappy with yourself, and you're going to say, you know what, I didn't do it because I couldn't bring myself to do it, and now I'm stuck doing this job that I believe is, it's a job, but it's not where I want to be. It's not how I want to be successful. And if you lose that, if you don't make that jump, you will never afford yourself the opportunity to experience success. And what I found out is that success is something entirely different than what I thought it was.
What do you mean?
I thought success was just money. Like I thought it was money. Like I can go out and I can buy something, or I can buy a car, a house, whatever, right? Or a watch, whatever. It's not it. Success is waking up on bad days, on horrible, shitty days, waking up on bad days and going, I love my freaking life. I love that I have the opportunity to get up again and fix whatever problem it is I'm facing with my business, or I get to do anything I want to, quite literally, as long as it pertains to my job. And I know, like, I sit back and I look at my job and what I do, and I freaking love it. I love every single part of it. That's why I can go on 6-hour, 7-hour shows, because I don't get tired of it. And that to me is it's not about my bank account. That's success. It's being proud of what you do.
Steve, I'll say this about the intricacies of what you do. 3 months ago, you posted a picture on Facebook, and to scale, it was a screw.
Yep.
And that screw was dwarfed by, I think you did a penny or a dime next to it or something.
It's a dime.
Yeah. And I was blown away because you were looking for that part, and that part, if it was laying on a desk somewhere, you'd totally miss it. But this part, this little tiny piece, had such significance for what you were trying to complete and the lengths you went to get it. I don't know of anybody in their right mind that would be so passionate about finding this microscopic screw to put this beautiful watch all back together for somebody. And then you you were talking about doing a wholesale thing. You were talking about doing this other stuff. And as we got to wrap it up here, but I'll say this, you take all of that stuff that you've done and you talk about, living in success and what that's like, and living on passion, like you're excited even on your bad days. We talked about it before, got versus get. You get to do this every day versus you got to do it every day.
Right.
And they always say this is a bad thing to do, so I'm going to do it anyway, is to introduce new material at the end of a segment. But you've got a lot of things working for you, and I'm going to run down them really quick. It'll take me just a minute. And, you're ultimately aware. And that's the first part of the No Comfort Zone Blueprint. You see a watch in a Vegas pawn shop that is the watch. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe this is in front of me. The guy that's behind the counter, 2 years it's been sitting there, doesn't have a clue, doesn't care, because he's got to go to work. where you get to do this. There's a big difference.
Right.
Then, you identified, how did I get to this point? What pain did you have to go through? And you identified, what do you want out of life? You've made decisions, you've taken action. You've written out your outcome. You've put your purpose in place, what you're going to be doing. And then you took action. Followed it up by knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits. You've had to work, your work ethic is amazing. You'll work 12 hours straight and even tell me, I think I should probably eat sometime, or, man, I should probably go to bed. You just nonstop. You're living in the, they call it flow, I guess. You're living in that zone. So you've got the knowledge, you've got the attitude, you've got skills now, because the way that you talk about a watch, tearing it down, where to get the parts, even though your enunciation of the words for these watch manufacturers is amazing. And the amazing habits that you have along the way on your processes. And this is what you've always brought since I've known you. And I call it the 4 E's. And that's the energy, the excitement, the enthusiasm, and the engagement. You just seem to bring that. Whenever you go into a room, you've got that energy. Steve Brown's in the area, and guess what? Steve knows a lot of shit about watches. He's the guy you go to. And I have guys asking me that, because we're friends and we've worked with some of these people, they're like, hey, Steve's got this watch, and they're talking about stuff that you're doing to me. Like, it's just full circle. And I think about that where you're at, and I'm looking at currently, you're totally in the success cycle. And the success cycle, as we talk about in this podcast, is your ability to keep things moving forward on a regular basis. And even if something's not necessarily going your right way, you find a way to do the next right thing. You just put your head down and keep going forward. And that's the reason why you're successful. And what I just did is shamelessly self-promoted the entire blueprint. And that's really what I go over with somebody when we go through a 60-day thing, is we constantly go through these things to get to the end result. And your end result, where you're at now, is where you're just starting, really, because you're at the bottom of the next mountain. What's next for Steve Brown?
You're right. And you say you shamelessly self-promoted it, but I guess I have the benefit of saying that I was maybe one of the first students, because there were a lot of days when things just weren't going my way, and you said things that just stuck with me, and maybe they pissed me off at that moment in time, but when I thought about them later, I thought, well, you know what, that makes sense, and that's a good outlook, and that's a good way to think about things. So when you talk about the energy, engagement, enthusiasm, etc., like, that's, I always had it a little bit, but I learned it from you. Like, I learned how to perfect it by watching you in those meetings and having our talks. And like, so guys, it's a real thing, Dan. The No Comfort Zone program is a real thing.
That's awesome, Steve. I got about 30 seconds. How do people contact you? Looking for a vintage watch, have a question, want to reach out to you and ask you, hey, Steve, I don't do watches, but I do this. How do they get a hold of you?
Super easy. Secondhandhorology.com. So HOROLOGY. Or you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, you name it. Secondhand Horology. You can find us, and my phone number is it's no secret. You can find me right there. That's
awesome, Steve. Thanks for taking time out of your super busy day, literally super busy day, to come and do this. And I want to say this, that when you're doing the right thing, the right people will show up, and Steve showed up in my life at the right time. And I'm going to say this as I close every single podcast is, today is the day, now is the time for you to get out of your comfort zone and live on purpose. Thanks for being on the show, Steve.
Thank you, Dan.
Right on. I'm glad you were on the show tonight, and we'll reconnect outside of this. Have a great evening, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, brother. Talk to you soon.
Say goodbye.
Want more of the No Comfort Zone? You can follow Dan on Instagram and Twitter at No Comfort Zone 1.
5.
Or on the web at thenocomfortzone.com.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the No Comfort Zone podcast.